Bam. One clap at a time. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Strongfit podcast. We're at sub -3 degrees here.
It's a bit chilly. So the whole country has shut down.
Exposure therapy.
There's no trains, no tramways, no nothing. So
why live in a first world country when you can't have first world amenities?
Every 2 years they have snow and minus something. And the country cannot function at minus something, even though it happens every 2 years. Because the rails for the trains are not heated. So therefore they have to stop. I was like, and what do you build them heated?
Yeah.
It's like, why didn't you build them heated then?
Yeah. It's not like this is a new thing.
No, so they were like, it happens only 2 weeks out of the year. I'm like, so we just shut down the country for 2 weeks out of the year. Oh, okay. I'm like, all right, that makes sense. Let's do that then. Cool.
I mean, I think it plays in perfect line with them not wanting to have people out right now with the whole Rona thing.
Yeah, because we have a curfew, we have a lockdown since December. Even though things are getting better, the measures are only getting worse. And now it seems they're talking till June. We're living in a dystopian book. It's fucking insane. Anyway.
Moving forward, guys.
So we're going to stay online is what we're saying. What we're saying is welcome to the mighty networks because there's going to be a lot of it.
I accept Bitcoin now, guys. I will always accept Bitcoin. Maybe Dodge too. Did you hear about Dodge?
No, I did not hear
side
about
rant
Dodge.
before we go into the actual episode. So Dodge is a new crypto that came out that was created as a kind of a troll by gamers.
Yeah, Dodge.
The Dodge meme. And that's literally the face of the coin is the Dodge, which is a Shiba Inu. But they created this whole crypto that's a person peer-to-peer whole thing. And Elon Musk is like, this is the greatest thing ever. So he's endorsing it. So the price shot up and they have a shit ton of coins out. So Elon Musk is like, don't you guys think this is great? Like the community as a whole created basically a coin for the people, by the people. Like this should be the coin and the currency for the world.
He sounds like Bane right now.
It's so
I like
good.
it.
It's so
exactly.
Good.
He just wants to see the world burn. But
Well, because I think he's on his way to Mars right now.
Yeah, I think he just wants to burn everything on the way out. But
his conspiracy is like, hey guys, I'm leaving Twitter for a few months. I'll be back. And everybody's like, well, he's obviously going to Mars. Like he's on his way
I won't lie. If I had his power and I'm looking at burning the world right now, I might go for it. I'd be like, fuck it. Let's destroy the banks.
Right.
All the hedge fund guys, like I wouldn't mind right now. Like with all GameStop stuff that happened and everything. Can we just torch the media first and then the banking system second? Fuck it. Yeah. Like I don't care what happens. Let's bring on the axes and the swords. I'll be fine.
I know how to kick now.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be fine.
All right. Rant over. Yeah. We can start here.
No, we put it in.
The whole thing in. Yeah, exactly. So guys, this episode we're going to talk about movement, breathing. We're going to have a course coming out. So we're going to kind of get into, you got to help me out with this one. I'm blanking for some reason.
The breath.
The breath world, but we were talking about systematic fragmentation.
Functional segregation versus functional integration. In the sense of what we see more and more is people take an aspect of a whole.
Yeah.
Start to dissect it to study it better, that's called functional segregation, which is necessary, right, to look at something. But then, out of what they studied, they tried to make a product out of it and sell that without reintegrating it into the unit that it came from. And I think that's the root of a lot of evil when it comes to those programs. You can't just take something that is very, very, very specific to a context,
right,
and generalize it. We see that with nutrition a lot, where they have systems that allow you to lose weight in 6 weeks. Right, that's called prepping for a show.
Yeah.
That's been used by bodybuilders for a long time. Does it work? Definitely works. Now, you take that and you try to make it last a year, and you're fucked.
Right.
Right, so in that sense, with breath, it's going to be the same thing. They took one part out of the breath work and just took all the stuff that was uncomfortable away that people might not like so that they make it into a nice bubble they can sell. And then what?
Right.
Right. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
I like it. So, I mean, we were right before the podcast talking about Wim Hof and his protocols.
Right.
Which I think is, kind of where this conversation kind of started a bit, because that guy is a master of his craft, right? Of exposure therapy, I would say.
Fuck yeah.
Being able to deal with the cold. And I remember watching him when Discovery Channel, when I was like 13, 14, there was a crazy guy that could run in the snow. He's been around for a long time. recently has gone very big with the breath protocols because they figured that it's not something to just be ridiculed, but something that can be controlled, and that there are certain things that we can do with breath.
Because so what happened was he started to do this thing, right?
Yeah.
And so let's explain that. He ran marathon
On ice.
In shorts.
Yeah.
He climbed I can't remember which one it was. It was a high peak in shorts.
Peak. Okay.
In shorts. Kilimanjaro, was that the one?
He was on Everest, but not on the top.
Everest, right,
Okay.
right. He climbed Everest in shorts. He swam either 25 meters or 50 meters under the ice. World record to this day. So we're talking about, he's shown that he could be in temperature where a human body should freeze and keep his body temperature normal, at a normal stuff. So he's shown that there was possibilities there that were beyond the normal.
Right.
But at the time, they all say, yeah, but only you can do it, you're just a freak. And then from there, he started to start teaching his way, and he managed to get other people to do it. And that's why I think everything came up, because then suddenly he was like, no, I can teach it. So he opened doors because suddenly the doctors could not say humans could not do it, which they were saying at the time. They were saying what he's doing is impossible for humans to do, he's just a freak. And then he taught it to people. And so now we ended up, that's when I think he got bigger and bigger. People were like, ooh.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And so as we started to see this growth of the ice baths, the cold showers in the morning to get you going. Now, can an ice bath or an ice shower be technically a fix if you're trying to use it to get you going in the morning?
If you could not find...
So we talk about the sympathetic fix, right?
Yeah.
And a little side rant here, but it always cracks me up because anything can be a sympathetic fix in essence, right? When you're using it to go into non-action. But people take it into a very extreme, like, well, if I'm listening to music and it gets me to a certain mood while I'm training, it's a fix. And it's...
Right. But okay, I will use what Freud said about sex one time when he said, look, if you have the weirdest fantasy that gets you hard for hours between two consenting adults, then fucking go for it.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like if it's functional, it's not a fix. For me, a fix is a dysfunctional thing, which means I can't have energy if I don't have coffee.
Okay.
That's a fix because you're supposed to have energy in the first place. I have a lot of energy. I just like to be going berserk with caffeine. Okay, then it's not a fix.
Yeah.
That's fine. So you like music. Everybody likes music, makes you happy. That's not a fix. You can't function without music. Okay, now we have a problem. That's a functional versus dysfunctional. But I think sometimes they take it a little bit too far.
Right.
In that sense. So that was Freud's point, is there is no weird fantasy in sex as long as it's functional.
Right. Yeah.
All right. I like that. I'll agree to that, honestly. Yeah.
That makes sense.
That was a good point. I mean.
Yeah. So as we start talking about, I think now more than ever, you start seeing everybody doing breath and exposure workshops, seminars. Yeah. You start to have these principles of breathing, and they've set up quite a lot into the protocols and the biological, physiological responses that breath has with the nervous system, with the brain, with anxiety, with panic.
Usually with a parasympathetic side only.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And so that's what I was going to get to. So the way that they seem to want to fix everything is going towards the parasympathetic side, because supposedly we already have too much of the sympathetic side going on, or too much stress going on in daily world, right? So that's where I think is part of the segregation, where we start to see, and you see this a lot, the people that originally were teaching breath work, I would say, would be yogis, right, and Buddhists.
Even Wim Hof got it from there.
Yeah, and it was always super active. If you do yoga correctly, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of stabilization. There's a lot of tension through the whole body. And then as you start to come through, then it's just getting people into the positions and having your flow through positions, not caring about certain tensions. I'm not saying all yogis out there, but when you see I call it corporate yoga.
Yes.
Right? And now with the breath work, it's the same thing. You're starting to see people wanting to have the fix-all be breathing.
Yeah. And
so that's where the segregation kind of comes in. And for me, that's where I feel there is a passive approach to breathing that's happening now.
Right, yes.
And so doing an inhale it can be done in so many different ways, right? So the tension and the intention behind that breath can do so much more for the body.
The intent is what matters.
Yeah.
As usual.
And so as we keep talking about Wim Hof, and he has his protocols, the protocols were meant to be done with action or exposure to extreme environments.
So again, Wim Hof ended up 50 meters under the ice to do his thing. If that's not action, I don't know what is. Do you guys understand the amount of stress and sympathetic pressure coming into it from that temperature and the water and everything? And he fought that through raising his parasympathetic level to
match the
sympathetic. So he raised his state to match the action. That's what he was doing. Same thing when he climbed Everest and everything. He was doing stuff, but he was exposing himself to a huge sympathetic pressure from the cold and temperature and everything. And he raised his own state to match that.
Right.
So it was never, let me bring the arch down. For him, it was always, let me lift the arch up so that the state matches the action.
Right.
That's it's not the same thing at all.
Yeah.
It is not the same thing at all.
And so when we start to see people that do, they think they're doing their exposure therapy through cold showers, at some point you get used to that stimulus, right?
Right,
So
because your skin is like, all right. So by the way, cold. The water is what? 5 degrees? 5, 6? Okay. Yeah. So at first, like if I do it right now, fuck yeah. It's cold to me.
Me too.
Right. But if I do it for 3 weeks, then I'll go under it and my body is like, yeah, whatever. At that stage, there is no reason to raise my parasympathetic. So first, let me explain why the parasympathetic is necessary, because it puts the brakes on the sympathetic side.
Right.
That's the idea, is that through the parasympathetic, from evolutionary reason that we explain in other podcasts, you just pull the brakes on the sympathetic, right? So, but if you take the same shower, same temperature every single day, within a month you get used to it, there is no need for a break anymore. So now you're doing something else. You're just increasing the parasympathetic for no reason specifically.
Right.
You're not building the arch anymore. You're just doing something else now.
Right.
Yeah.
So as we start to go into the course, we're going to kind of break down a lot of the whys, how the body does its thing. Different protocols. I think I've created my own methods of breathing, just through experiences and working with clients and going through my own frustrations and growing spurts.
But let's explain what we want out of the course, because it's going to be the activation of the parasympathetic side, depending, but also the sympathetic side. Before we go there, we have seen someone you were showing me. I don't know if the post was aimed at us or not, but it was a lot about like the breath is a tool, it's not a fix in itself or whatever. It depends on the intent. Yeah. Again, like is it a tool? Definitely with the right intent. With the wrong intent, it is a fix. But then the guy was like, oh, you're going to see breath courses coming up in 2021. I promise you. We've been saying that we're going to do a breath course for like a long time now, probably a year or two. So I don't want to see us included in that group in any shape or form. If it happens, I'm coming out on social media. I'm just saying right now. That guy better not use us as an example or that we are banking on breath. We've been doing this shit for a long time. We have the videos.
Right.
Back
and I've been
Australia.
Talking about breath on all our courses. Like we started the cyclical breathing, the action breathing, the Darth Vader breathing,
we have videos in Australia talking about this. So I don't want to see us included in that thing in any shape or form. Otherwise, I'm going to get really pissed.
And I don't think anybody's talked about movement and breathing with mobility except for us.
No.
I haven't seen it with anybody.
No. And I certainly have not seen anybody talk about action breathing.
Yeah. Nobody.
So that they don't. So why are we going to do a breath course? Exactly for that. Because we use breath not just as a namaste the bear away. Right. Which is what we see mostly. So let's explain what we don't want to see, what we're going to do about it.
Right.
So what we see is a lot of people that are constantly trying to raise the parasympathetic side.
Yeah.
Even, and now we get to a stage where it's not even to match a specific state, is because raising the parasympathetic is just better.
Yeah.
Even though we don't know why.
Right.
So now, going back to the last podcast, depending where this comes out, I don't know if you've seen it or not. But what I think we see is taking the discomfort away to make a nice shiny bubble for things to sell.
Yeah.
That seems to be the fitness industry right now, where again, they take protocols to lose weight, but they try to make them to sell them all year long. And then when it doesn't work, obviously, it's your fault.
Yeah.
So now what they say is like, well, you're stressed in your daily life, aren't you? Well, Yes, but depending on what you call stress.
Right.
Stress is just a demand for an expenditure of energy. Do you have that in your life? Yes.
Sure,
it's
we
called
all.
working. It's called living. Yes, there'll be some stress, right? So now they're like, well, therefore it's a sympathetic. Therefore you need to go parasympathetic. Therefore you need to do my breathing.
Right.
I'm like, no, that's not how this works. Like, there's different types of stress. There's the acute stress versus the chronic stress. You're already far too much on the parasympathetic side most of the time, I can tell you that. There's very little true sympathetic triggers out there.
Yeah, and the biggest thing that baffles my mind, and this is something that we started talking about, I think it was 7 or 8 months ago, is the reaction to stress, which is so important.
Yeah.
Because we keep trying to think that the breath work is just going to bring our baseline down, but what if you don't need to have that baseline down?
What if you don't want it down? What if that's not the life you're looking for?
Well, what if you're in a situation where the baseline needs to be fucking high because you're like hedge fund managers, people in the stock market, artists. Yeah,
I don't want a low baseline. I don't want to live at a 2. I fucking hate that.
Yeah.
I want to be at a 7. I just don't want panic attacks.
Right.
But I don't want to be at a 2 either. I want to be at a 7, 8 all the time. I'm far more creative right now than when I'm lower.
Yeah.
So this is better for me. Yeah, so that idea that you want to lower your baseline, said who?
Right.
Like, people baseline are too high. How do you know? Okay, too high? How about you just take out the coffee and the sugar, by the way? Why do we need to go into breathing? Just so that people can have more coffee and sugar? I mean, like, it's not that simple.
Yeah. Well, and that seems to be
reaction to stress.
Reaction to stress, yeah. But it's a very much a let's try and figure out. It's always a fix-all, right? So it's the same with like the keto diet,
the generalization,
the carnivore, the this or that. It's always a fix-all, and this is something that you always talked about, where no matter the argumentation, even if you're arguing about the same thing, the context is the same, but because I'm using the word carnivore and you're using the word keto, now we're fighting.
Yeah.
Right?
That generalization.
Like, like the biggest one like that I recently saw was the Joe Rogan podcast with the CEO of Whole Foods. And it was so good, but they started arguing for like 45 minutes. And I'm like, do you guys not hear yourselves?
Yeah, you're talking about
the guy's like,
shit,
no, I don't mind having proteins a little bit at night, but I'm just saying a whole food diet. So you have fruits and vegetables throughout the day, and at night you have some protein. And Joe Rogan's like, yeah, but because he thought that whole food diet meant a vegan diet. But you know what I mean? So like the context, the argumentation there was so doled out.
Yeah.
And so I think like with the breath work, or with functional training or this or that, like they get into this fragmented view.
Yeah.
They get so deep into their corner that they're not willing to go like, hey, I do need to actually train while I'm moving. And you know what I mean? Yeah. Like nasal breathing is great for training until you're fucking swimming and all you do is see black, and now the stress is going to freak out. And if you don't learn to adapt or raise your breathing and your heart rate to that level, you're going to have a fucking panic attack in the middle of the water.
You're not nasal breathing through kickboxing.
Right. Yeah.
You're not nasal breathing through Olympic weightlifting. You're not nasal breathing through Fran.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, there's a generalization to nasal breathing because we use it.
Right.
But there has to be within specific context. There's an intent as to when we use nasal breathing. Should it be used? Definitely, but not all the time.
Right.
It's like they refuse to integrate more than one thing at a time now.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's one thing, that's all we're going to talk about because we can't do 2.
Right.
And welcome to life, there's usually 17 things you have to integrate as once. Yeah, well, it's complicated. Well, welcome to life. Yeah. And so we see a lot of that. We see a lot of the breath that is just pushed as you're stressed out, so therefore breath work in order to go to the parasympathetic, where a lot of the time, as you were saying, it's lower the baseline. The problem might not be how high your baseline is. Your problem might be your reaction to stress.
The reaction to stress.
You are not reacting to stress, to a demand for an expenditure of energy correctly. That should be addressed, not necessarily the baseline. So, for example, the stress with me in kickboxing, the problem wasn't my baseline. The problem is my reaction to stress to that just jacked up my heart rate.
Right.
How do I deal with that?
Exactly.
And it's not going to be nasal breathing because that didn't work.
Right, yeah. That shit did not work.
That shit did not work. My breathing was fine and my heart rate was just through the roof this morning on my kickboxing session. So that shows you that the problem is not my baseline, it's not nasal breathing. It's for many reasons, like obviously my heart rate freaking out. So it was like it didn't feel like a panic attack, but that's basically what it was, right? Just incapacity to bring my heart rate down. Nasal breathing is not going to do it. Not in between sets of kicking.
Right.
Yeah, give me 5 minutes of nasal breathing, but within 5 minutes, the heart rate will come down anyway.
Right.
The key was to match the intent, which is kick the living shit out of the pads.
Yeah.
That's action breathing, not nasal breathing. So by the way, I made the mistake. I fell into my own trap on that one.
And so I think that's the biggest thing. And I keep trying to think of a fucking creative name. I'll get something.
Yes, exactly.
But it's going to be I don't even want to call it a breath course now because it just sounds shit.
No, because now they're all going to accuse us to jump on the bandwagon.
But it's going to be 8 weeks of incorporating different tools of breath into your movement, your training, your adaptation to the state that you need to be in, right? So it's not just going to be breathing. We're going to include, I would say, nervous system, movement, training.
No, but even for breathing, let's talk about the different types of breathing that we have. Because we use nasal breathing to test flow under pressure.
Yeah.
But then there's inhale through the nose, exhale through the lips.
Yeah.
There's inhale through the nose, exhale through the throat.
Yeah.
Then there's inhale through the mouth, exhale through the throat. Inhale through the mouth, exhale through the nose.
There's hiding the lips or showing the lips. Like there's breathing through the nose. I can think of 15 different ways to breathe in and out through the nose.
Exactly.
Only.
And by the way, we even play with the nostrils, left versus right.
And we've played with in through the nose, nasal breathing on one side, mouth breathing on the other. Remember, you could get like an extra 30% of reps.
It
was crazy.
That actually, depending on which, because I would inhale on the left, exhale on the right, on the rope
don't
pull
give them
and
all
shit. Okay.
Bro, coach,
but
you're giving away the course.
No, okay. So by the way, there's inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Are you doing that on the concentric or on the eccentric? Because that changes things well, because you have to adapt it to movement. And then there's action breathing, same thing. So mouth. But which one is concentric? Which one is eccentric? That's not the same either, because I remember on the assessment, exhaling through the lips at the right moment was helping on the deadlift. Right. So it all depends on the intent. But the breathing and the movement have to go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And that's what they're not doing. Like the Namaste, the barrel way, this shit is not working.
Right. Yeah.
For all context.
Well, I think it's an active way. It's an active approach to breathing.
I like it.
Right? It's not a passive approach.
Active approach to breathing.
Active approach to breathing.
I kind of like it.
Yeah, and so
that's a good title.
I mean, I've done some cool shit because when I look at breath, I never looked at it as a segregated form, as the golden aha moment or any. There was a lot of aha golden moments in it, but it was always for me a tool to better do assessments. Better understand where my clients are without cueing them how to breathe. Like I'll just let my clients do something, and just by being able to listen to their breath and see their face, I can see exactly if they're moving correctly or not. It's crazy.
But even if we cue breathing, we would do it within five other different specific constraints.
Right. Yeah.
The type of movement, the torque chains, eccentric versus concentric, like there's so many constraints to an exercise that mobility, for example, how to find your mobility. Yeah. We can use breathing to find mobility. That one, we have to be the only one who can do it.
About that.
No one does that.
I've looked it up. Yeah. Nobody has.
There's a link between inhale mobility or exhale mobility. Like it is just not the same. All this cannot live within nasal breathing for parasympathetic. Right. It's one of the many things, but it's not even just like control your breathing. It's a tool, but it's a tool that has to be integrated with the other 10 within the stuff. Like this is, otherwise you're just selling shit.
Right. Yeah.
Which is mostly what we see, let's be honest.
Yeah. It's just, they find some sort of trending thing.
They're just building a market share, even if it's not trending. Like, because some of them have been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
But what they do, they want to be seen as the expert of in order to have a market share. Then they go on podcasts saying the same shit for 5 years. And at some point, you always run into problem because you have narrowed down your field to the point where it only works in very specific cases. When we see that it doesn't work as promised outside of that very specific context, then they get stuck. They get pulled into a corner, and that's usually when they start to steal our shit to get out of it. Let's be honest.
Try to find different, more academical terms.
Oh, I love when they do that one.
Rephrase what we're doing.
I love when they do that one.
Or they'll just steal word for word and start their own course.
Some do that too. And just side rant. We want people, what we care about is what works, is what the truth is.
Right.
Not, there is your truth, my truth, and reality.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is we want people to take and use our stuff because it works. So therefore you help people, we call for it. just how about just giving credit where credit is due?
Yeah, or like I had a girl from the Find Your Damn Muscles, and she's like, "Hey, this is working awesome. I'm going to use it with my rock climbers and my marathon runners and trail runners. Is it cool that I put a video out there?" I was like, "Absolutely. Like that's the point, right?" But having that to me creates so much more strength in who that person is as a coach, saying, "Hey, I learned this from you."
Exactly.
But can I use it? Because I'm starting to understand it and I'm seeing the results for myself. So I wanted to put it out there.
Understand what this is. This is me 2 months from now doing a course on kicking.
Yeah.
And not mentioning Paul.
Right. Yeah.
So I learned from the guy, one of the best coaches in Holland, which is one of the best countries in the world to learn kicks. And then he tells me the stuff. I figure of using on my own. I come up with a course on coaxing, on kicking, and I don't mention that I learned from Paul. How would you guys feel?
Yeah. It's a shitty situation.
I don't think Paul will like it either.
Right. But and it's whether if you heard it from the podcast or this or that, like I put so much time and effort, and you put so much time and effort into coming up with these concepts, right? Which these are concepts that, you have the science and you have the papers to back everything out. Yeah. But, doing the lactate instead of energy systems, like nobody's teaching that, right? The Disney December, nobody's teaching that.
That's ours.
The tension versus precision, nobody's teaching that.
Now they are.
Now they're starting to. But, with everything that we're doing, even like the movement box of 2.0 that we're going to be doing, because we're realizing we have to do our own thing. Like a lot of the emotional mapping stuff, like, there's the body keeps the score, and so has the ultimate muscle and all these books, but they're all passive approaches. Yeah. And I say that.
And segregated.
And if I learn from something, I'll put it out there, be like, hey, I got it from here.
I do. I talk like Carl Friston constantly.
Yeah.
Our point is, can we do this as a team?
Right.
We want you to do it. Just include us in it. Yeah. We just want to be part of the human race. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's out there, they take the stuff and we're just being excluded from it. That's the only part where we get upset is like, can you please include us in it? Just so that we can be proud of what we teach.
Right.
Because it has results. It's not the same as someone full-blown stealing and pretending like they came up with it instead of us. Of course, I want you guys to use it. It's just, it feels good when you give credit where credit is due. Right. Maybe I don't know, but in martial arts, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you give respect to your sensei. Like, isn't that obvious? Right. That's all. That's all we're asking for. We're not asking you not to do it. It's just, and by the way, we have a number of people that always give us credit, and we love you all.
Sure.
It's just, we see our stuff out there on people that are obviously using it for business, just refusing to give credit. I don't like that.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah.
Side went.
But so, I think that's going to be I'm really excited for the breath course, because we've had quite a few people in the community ask for it.
You've been out long enough.
Yeah. And we have super cool concepts and approaches that I usually just use on like my one-on-one assessments or things like that, they just connect to the nervous system. They connect to, creating more strength, like buffering the nervous system I have some cool warm-up workouts that I have funny names for, like the blue balls workout, the Super Saiyan workout. There's a lot of cool things.
This is the part where I'm happy to do the modules. There's so much stuff we have done, you and me,
just in the back end.
That is just in the back end and no one knows about.
Right.
Like that experience that experience that I had on the Super Saiyan stuff was still one of the craziest I've ever had. Yeah. Like, I was on crack for 3 days.
Right. The fact that if you take the course, I'm not going to put it on podcast. Especially, I don't like putting it out there because I like to see people die when they come to the seminars. But the fact that you could do an all-out effort sled sprint or sled drag and move a little bit, and the pain goes away from the legs. Right. And you're like, what?
Let's talk about this for a second. Because they tell you that cramping is an energy system thing. That, you do a sled sprint and then your legs are cramping. That is not an energy system thing. We can take it away in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
I know, because we've done it every time. Yeah. It's a specific way of moving and breathing, and cramping is gone.
Right away.
Like, it never happened.
Yeah.
So it's a nervous system thing, not an energy system thing.
I did it on the last Coaches Week. And he was like, why didn't you tell us this in the summer? I was like, it's not fun.
Exactly. It's not nearly as fun. That's why Alex put it on the video. I was like, maybe we should not put it out there. People should die.
It's more fun.
It's way more fun.
Like, even myself, like, I like to die. Like, I
kind of like the cramping a bit. Yeah.
It's that earning your stripes. You know what I mean? Like, it's part of earning your stripes with the sled. You have to die a little bit.
Should have tried that on the kickboxing.
That would be interesting.
To see if he brings my heart rate down.
But it'd be the psoas. So you would have to do it on the psoas race.
Oh yeah, right.
Because it's the psoas and the foot. So that would be. We'll have cool stuff.
Exactly. Anyway, moving interesting point. Yeah, exactly. So that's how we come up with shit. By the way, we have so much stuff that no one knows about. That's why also we have to put more stuff out there, because otherwise it's going to get buried. No one will ever know.
Yeah. When we just have, that's the thing, is we come up with something and then we start using it and then just kind of goes in the back end.
Right. That's why we need to create modules every time. That's why the Strongfit library is good, because even like I'm looking for that stuff with the Australian professor. I can't remember what it was. I have it somewhere. I have to look it up.
2017 coach.
I know.
That was a while ago.
That's why I can't find it. Yeah, but that was
some cool
with
stuff.
What I know now, I want to go back to that. I just can't remember what it was.
Right.
So that's why we're going to do the breath module, because it's been around. We have so much shit. It has to come out, because we're going to have to do a breath, like whatever we call it, module 1, but there has to be module 2 and probably 3, because we have to start with the basics, but there's so many ways to apply this.
And how it connects to everything that we do with our body, right? I think that's the biggest part. It's not the fix-all, but it's
one of the tools.
Yeah. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that we need to look at as coaches and as trainers, is everything that you guys are learning when you're out there. It's get inspiration from it, understand the fundamentals, but then always bring it back to the body as a whole.
It's the S pyramid.
Yeah.
Work on the structure and work on the specialization as well. And I get it. I make the mistakes. I was so good at structure that I start sucking at specialization, but both need to happen. And with breath, it's going to be the same thing. There's a basic you need to know, then you take it all the way up to the top. Yeah. And that's what this should be, is the entire pyramid, not just take one chunk and create a market share out of that.
Right.
And I think this is where we're finding ourselves more and more. Yeah. You and me within this is like we're fighting, we are done with that part of the fitness industry. You all want to do this? Go have fun. But we're not going to do it. Taking one thing, so functional segregation, to create a market share and sell it and make money for 3 years and then come up with something else, no.
Right.
Everything we do has to be integrated within everything else that we do.
Right.
And that's what the modules we do is still functional integration of a concept applied within everything else.
Right.
But the breath is very necessary, and it's also necessary for us to put all our stuff out there so that we don't lose anything.
Yeah.
Too. We don't lose anything, and then it's out there, and it's gonna make it harder for people to steal our shit.
Right. For sure.
And me, it puts us on Mighty Networks away from Facebook and all that stuff, and that starts to make me extremely happy. I'm starting to want to burn the world down, but anyway.
We need to stop calling it Mighty Networks, so it's the Strongfit multiverse.
The Strongfit multiverse, I like it. So the multiverse, there we go. So
where you have anime, Star Wars, a little bit of Marvel is going to start to come in. I can see the Marvels coming in a little bit more.
There's so much through Marvel, like Wolverine is there anyway, and there's so much through Marvel.
Deadpool.
Groot.
I want to be Deadpool.
Deadpool is cool. Well, I can switch you to Deadpool, actually. That's easy.
I like it.
I'll do that. I'll switch you to Deadpool.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that.
Yep.
Cool. Solid, guys. So the course will be starting early March. Look out for the links and everything. Hopefully this comes out before. I have Alex right behind the camera going, holy shit, guys, stop it.
We just need that one, Alex. Don't worry about the other.
Cool, guys. Have a good one. We'll see you guys on the next post.
Bye,
next
guys.
podcast. That one. Yep. Later.